Hello everyone, I'm Brian. Today I'm reacting to Doctrine of Karma Part 2, Karma and Free Will. So that's going to be interesting. With the way he was explaining karma, it seems like you do have free will, although you have certain things that are going to happen to you no matter what, because of karma. So good and bad things will happen to you, but outside of those maybe particular things, I don't know if it's like one bad thing's going to happen to you to negate the bad karma that you accumulated, or one good thing's going to happen to you, or how does that work? But I assume both are possible, but let's go ahead and get started. CC, it's on.
Welcome. In our previous presentation on the doctrine of karma, we discussed how our actions sometimes produce unexpected, unpredictable results due to hidden variables, which are unseen factors that can influence the outcome of an action. These hidden variables are, in part, due to the fructification of a drishtapala. Adrishtapala is a result that is unseen, adrishta, at the time a karma is performed. So, adrishtapala is a result that is pending, waiting to fructify at some later time. And it is this adrishtapala that we refer to as my karma when we talk about the results of past actions that affect us in the present life. All this was discussed before and is summarized on the chart. In this presentation, our inquiry into the doctrine of karma will continue with an examination of how the outcome of every action is actually due to the combination of two main factors, adrishtapala and human effort. For guidance in this matter, we can turn to the third book of the Mahabharata, the Aranyaka Parva. There we find an elaborate depiction of the trials and tribulations undergone by the Pandavas during their 12 years of exile in the forest. In chapter 33, there's a remarkable dialogue between Yudhishthira and his wife Draupadi. Their discussion is focused on how a righteous crown prince like Yudhishthira could end up suffering the injustice of exile, with all the humiliation and misery that it entails. To Yudhishthira's surprise, Draupadi proclaims some exceedingly profound teachings about the doctrine of karma. To account for her amazing depth of knowledge, she explains that when she was a little girl, her father, Drupada, had invited a wise Brahmana to live with them. This Brahmana had been blessed with great wisdom by none other than Brahaspati, the deity who served as priest and guru to the gods in heaven. The Brahmana imparted this great wisdom to Drupada, including teachings about the doctrine of karma. At those times, Draupadi sat in her father's lap, absorbing everything the Brahmana taught. In verse 30, Draupadi gives 3 different ways of explaining how everyone is subject to undergo undeserved suffering in life, even a righteous person like Yudhishthira. First, she says, Sarvam eva hatena eke. Eke, some people say that sarvam, everything that happens in life is hatena, is due to hata, chance, occurring entirely at random. Secondly, she says, dishtena eke vadantyuta. Breaking the words apart, eke vadanti, other people say, everything that happens in life is dishta, ordained or determined by the adrishtaphalas that fructify in this life. Thirdly, she says, Purusha prayatnajam kechata. Kechata, other people say that everything that happens in life is due to Purusha prayatna, the effort, prayatna, of a person, Purusha. Then she concludes, Kraidham etan niruchyate. Etat, this topic, about everything that happens in life, niruchyate, is explained, Kraidham, in 3 different ways, as being due to chance, due to adrishtaphala, or due to Purusha prayatna, human effort. Now, we need to expand on Draupadi's observation here. Let's start with the 3rd line. Many people profess that our lives are shaped exclusively by the decisions we make and the efforts we exert. They say we are all born with free will, so each of us is the captain of his own ship, so to speak. We are free to choose any course we want as we navigate the river of life. This sounds good, but such people fail to acknowledge the hidden variables that can and do affect us while we're sailing down the river of life. In a sailboat, you can control your direction with the rudder, but you can't control the wind. If the wind blows in the wrong direction, your progress will be stalled. And if the wind stops altogether, your sailboat won't move an inch. Using our free will, we can choose to act, but we can't choose the outcome of that action. Sri Krishna says this very clearly in the most frequently quoted verse in the Bhagavad Gita. Karmanyevadikaraste ma paleshu kadachana. Te adhikaraha. You have authority, command, or choice, karmani eva, over your actions alone. Ma paleshu. But you have no command or choice over the results of those actions, kadachana, at any time.
Huh. So I was going to pause it, but actually I'm glad I waited till this one. This is something that Sadhguru talks about, how you have absolute control over your life, your body, should I say, and the things that you do in your body, for the most part. You know, you can't exactly control your cells, but in terms of what you do, of the actions that you're capable of doing with your body, you have control over. You have control over certain things in life, like your room or maybe your phone. You know, so long as it's yours, you have control over it. I mean, they're inanimate objects. They don't exactly resist you for the most part. But in terms of everything else external in life, other people, other objects that you don't control physically, you don't quite have control over. Even a car, even though you're the driver in it, you don't have necessarily complete control over it. You know, sometimes the brake will fail, or, you know, not enough gas, or whatever it may be. And then the results, I will say you do have some control over the results, but obviously not complete control. And I think that's what they're talking about, because imagine, just say, cooking. If you give it your best effort, you learn how to cook, you train in so many ways, and then you learn how, you continue to practice making this one dish, the results will get better and better. Maybe perhaps he's talking about something else different there, but this is how I see it. And also, just say, in a sport, when you run, you know, you first time trying, you're going to be crap at it. You're not going to run very well unless you're just naturally born that way. But as you practice, you get better, so your results get better, but you still don't have control over your opponents. So that's the results I think he's talking about is external results as opposed to internal results. So as you practice to run faster, quicker, you know, get more endurance, strengthen your muscles, you have control over the results over your body. But in terms of actions externally, your opponents, not so much. And even then, sometimes even internally, you cannot go beyond your limitation. DNA, genetics, and whatnot have some play into how far you can go along. And you could probably, I don't know, I'm sure there are limitations to your body, and some people are just going to be that much better because of their genetics. But you only can make yourself as good as possible, but sometimes it might not be good enough. But you have control in putting yourself to that limit.
Simply put, we can choose our actions, but we can't choose the results, because the results are partly determined by our adrishtapala, as we discussed before. In the first line, Draupadi describes the view of others who are less optimistic. They believe that the hidden variables which affect us in life are basically random. When the outcome of an action is better or worse than expected, according to them, it's not due to the fructification of adrishtapala, it's merely a matter of chance. So, there's a 50-50 chance of an outcome being better or worse than expected. No doubt, randomness is a fact of nature. The smoke from an incense stick will spread out in the room even if the air is perfectly still. The random motion of air molecules is responsible for this phenomenon. Yet, there's no basis for saying that all hidden variables are random. What looks random might indeed be due to the fructification of adrishtapala. A scientist will say that your genes are selected at random, some from your mother's DNA and some from your father's. But it's also possible that your genes have been determined by your adrishtapala according to the laws of karma. We noted before that scientists can't investigate adrishtapala because it's unobservable. So they can't dismiss the possibility that your genome has been determined according to the laws of karma. For this reason, it's not true that all hidden variables are random. Some may be random, but some may be due to your past karma.
I can definitely accept that with what Sadhguru was talking about, how the example he gives is like, do you see your grandfather or your great-great-grandfather? Well, he's on your nose. And I do agree with that. Again, this is kind of, he says it is karma, and I suppose karmic memory. And that being part of karma, yes, I do believe in that. Like, a lot of the genes and the DNA from your mother and father's side does get into you, and those karmic genes or karmic memory from their genes will be passed on to you, and there could be some side effects to it for sure.
In the second line, Draupadi describes the view of those who misinterpret the doctrine of karma. They correctly say that the hidden variables in life are dishta, ordained or determined by our adrishtapala from deeds committed before. But they make a mistake by claiming that everything that happens in life is determined exclusively by our adrishtapala and not by anything else. This view totally negates the role of human effort in producing results. And it also negates the possibility of any randomness in the universe. They go too far in claiming that adrishtapala is the sole factor in determining the outcome of our actions. Yet, some people cling to this misconception. And this misconception is particularly harmful because if the outcome of every action you perform is determined by your adrishtapala alone, then your efforts really don't make any difference.
Would that also mean that you're kind of stuck in a loop then? And also, where did this all originate from? I suppose if you go back to the first single cell organism, where did its karma come from? And then if you're stuck in this loop or this I'm sorry, I can't remember the word for it, but you're adrishta karma. I'm sorry, the karma that your past karma. And if something bad happens, I'm sorry, if you do bad things will happen to you, and you're kind of stuck in this loop, right? Because you would have no free will. Because free will is, in a sense, what makes the world somewhat random. Free will say that you either choose, you're deterministic and choose what you would normally choose, or maybe for that random day that you decided not to choose chocolate and choose vanilla instead. Free will adds the randomness to the universe. So by saying that everything is deterministic, you have no free will, then everything's determined, then you're kind of stuck in this loop. Is that what he's saying?
And if your efforts don't make any difference, then why should you bother making an effort at all? This unfortunate misconception can lead people to be resigned, submissive, and fatalistic. All three of the views described by Draupadi claim that one factor and one factor alone is responsible for the outcome of an action. But the truth is, all three of the factors are jointly responsible for what happens. And that's exactly what Draupadi explains in the next verse. Starting with the third line, Purusha palam apnoti. Purusha, a person, apnoti, obtains, palam, the results of an action, kinchit daivat, partly due to daiva, which refers to adrishtapala, datat kinchit, and partly due to hata, chance, kinchireva swakarmataha, and partly swakarmataha due to one's efforts. Chaturtam natra karanam. Naatra, there is no chaturtam, fourth, karanam, cause or factor. It's the combination of all three factors, chance, adrishtapala, and human effort, that determines result of a particular action.
Okay, he read that kind of weird. I think he read it like the third sentence first. So partially ordained, partially by chance, and partially by one's own effort, a person obtains a result. There is no fourth cause. I personally want to believe in the second phrase, one's own effort. I think that placed the larger percentage of one's results. You can change life. Obviously, I don't like chance. That makes it seem like luck. But chance as a means of randomness, but that's also, people will say that's luck because it's random, and if randomly in your favor or randomly against you. And ordain as in part of something that's going to happen to you through genetics or things that you have no control over, but it's not necessarily luck. So this is my personal beliefs and what I want to believe, that it's mostly by one's own effort. Little with luck and little with ordain. But I'm not dismissing those two.
This is a central teaching of the doctrine of karma, and is very clearly described here by Draupadi. Now, we can turn to a traditional metaphor that vividly demonstrates how these factors affect us in our lives. Suppose you were to swim across a river. You start out swimming directly towards your destination on the far bank, but the current sweeps you a bit downstream from that spot. In this metaphor, swimming represents the human effort you exert in the performance of any karma, and the river's current represents the effects of your adrishta pala. You can think of it as a karmic current, since it represents the force of your past karmas. The randomness described before is not a major factor in this particular metaphor. Even though the water molecules are moving randomly, it really doesn't make any difference here, so we'll set this factor aside for now. The purpose of this metaphor is to show that the outcome of your actions depends jointly on these two main factors: human effort and past karma.
I do wonder what he would say that knowing this metaphor, I don't know if this is something that could work out, or maybe there may be a better metaphor for it, but you adjust your effort. So obviously if you try to swim straight on the current, you will go down, but if you try to swim upwards, you'll compensate for that effort, but that would mean more efforts required. I wonder if that's something, an analogy that will work too, where that means based on your past karma, you will require more human effort to compensate for past karma. I wonder if that's possible.
The importance of either factor cannot be discounted. This metaphor is also useful in answering several common questions about the doctrine of karma.
I wonder if one of them is mine.
First of all, can the force of our past karmas make it impossible for us to reach our goals? Not necessarily, as this metaphor shows. Does the river's current make it impossible for you to reach your goal on the far bank? There are several ways to reach that spot. You could swim across the river and then walk up the other side, or you could walk up the near side of the river and then swim across. Or, if you're really smart, you could swim across a river at the exact angle that compensates for the force of the current.
He is very good. He reads my mind. Stop it.
These examples nicely demonstrate how we can accommodate or compensate for the effects of past karmas in our lives. We often do this instinctively, without even thinking about karma. When you're driving and traffic on the road is too heavy, you take another route. When you want a raise in salary at work, but your supervisor refuses, you get yourself transferred to another department. When obstacles in life arise due to the fructification of past karmas, we often instinctively respond by taking the necessary steps to either remove the obstacles or to find a way to go around them. There's another aspect of the laws of karma nicely demonstrated by this metaphor. The strength or intensity of the effects of our past karmas can vary considerably. Sometimes the force of the karmic current in life can be extremely strong, perhaps due to the fructification of adrishtapala arising from some extremely powerful past actions. But sometimes the force exerted by our past karmas can be quite weak. In the case of the river, if the current is fairly weak, and if you're a strong swimmer, it won't affect you much. You could even swim directly upstream. In the same way, if the force exerted by the fructification of your past karma is fairly weak, and if you exert sufficient effort, you can overcome any and all obstacles created by your past karma.
I like that. Again, the reason why I like it is because it doesn't make someone hopeless. Like, what is it? Everything is ordained, as he said earlier, where basically everything's predetermined. So why even try? I don't like that idea. I don't want to put that idea out to people. I want people to know that they can make changes in their lives. I mean, it may take a while, it may take a lot of effort, but you can make changes in your life. It'll take a lot of time, it's not going to be easy, but it can happen. It can happen. It's not guaranteed. Nothing in life is guaranteed, and I really like his explanation here. Even things in your past can be, or even your past karma, you can overcome them. I love that. Not all the time, perhaps, but most of the time.
On the other hand, there are times in life when the force exerted by the fructification of our past karmas is exceedingly strong. At such times, we need to employ suitable strategies to meet those challenges. Suppose the river we've been talking about lies in India, and you arrive at its banks during the monsoon season, when heavy rains have caused the river to swell, turning it into a violent torrent of rushing water. If you were to try to swim across the river, you would certainly drown. This scenario represents the times in life when the force of our past karmas is overwhelming. No matter how hard we might try, we will not be able to overcome the unyielding force of such powerful karmic currents. But in such situations, failure or disaster is not inevitable. Even though we have no choice or control over the powerful adrishtapalas that are fructifying, we always have choice over our actions. This is a crucially important principle. No matter what kind of obstacles our past karmas might produce, we can always choose how we respond in any situation. We're never truly helpless. To illustrate this, if the river is a raging torrent, only a fool would jump in. A wise person would wait for the monsoon season to end and for the river to return to its normal, placid state. Then he or she could easily swim across. In the same way, when insurmountable obstacles are created by our past karmas, the best response might simply be to wait. When heavy traffic grinds to a halt, or when the boss says no to your request for a raise, patience is required.
Right now, that is so me right now. That is very much me right now. I keep saying there's something going on in my life that it's kind of taken up a lot. It's the reason why I can't do too many things. It's because I'm trying to make that change, but it's a terrible time in society right now to do anything that I want to do, but I have to do it, but I have to be wise and smart about it. I'm sorry I can't say, just and that's what I'm doing right now. Literally what he just said here is the fact that I have to be patient, I have to be wise, I have to make good decisions. And I say I'm a numbers kind of guy because the thing that I want to do takes a lot. And it takes a lot, I'll just put it that way. And I have to be wise, otherwise I'll get in big trouble, and not in like a what do you call it, a against the law type thing. It's a different kind of trouble. It's putting myself into a troubled situation, basically.
Before long, the traffic will start moving again. And you might find that your supervisor eventually changes his mind about your raise if you continue to work hard and with a good attitude in spite of his refusal. Also, there's another intelligent way to respond to the obstacle presented by the swollen river.
Get some help, tie a rope, get some, to help swimming vesting, or build a bridge.
You could choose a different destination on this side of the river instead of the spot on the far bank. This example points to the fact that there are many important goals in life worthy of being sought. When we meet with insurmountable obstacles created by our past karmas, sometimes we need to re-evaluate our goals. If we're flexible enough to make the necessary adjustments, we can continue to move forward in life by shifting the direction of our efforts towards a new objective.
And that's what I'm doing right now too. I'm trying to find this balance of getting what I want and what I need, where I can get it sooner, but not to the point where I regret getting it.
If the traffic is so bad, maybe you don't really need to go to Starbucks for that coffee.
Hey, I was talking about. Sorry, I keep pausing so much, but I explained this video in one of the other videos with Sadhguru, and I was talking about how I didn't go to Dunkin' Donuts to get my coffee. Oh my gosh, I don't go to Starbucks; too expensive.
And when your supervisor says no to your request for a raise, you could certainly look for another job. As they say, when one door closes, another opens. Based on all this, we are never, ever helpless in the face of our past karmas. To assume that you are helpless is an utterly self-defeating mistake. To understand this, suppose a foolish person accidentally falls into the river and realizes a powerful current is sweeping him downstream. If he feels helpless, he might panic and wildly thrash about in the water. While he's doing so, he'll continue to be swept downstream towards the rocks and waterfall. This example demonstrates what can happen when we suddenly find ourselves thrust into situations that are frightening and threatening, situations born of our past papa karmas, situations for which we are totally unprepared.
I'm wondering, like I was talking about earlier, there's something that I want. I'm wondering the reason why I can't have what I want is due to my past karma. Again, assuming that I believe that. I'm wondering the reason why I cannot have that now. And because I could have gotten it potentially earlier, but I decided to wait because of a couple of things, and now it all fell apart. Is it because I waited, or is it because of my past karma? Should that be true? My decisions and past karma? Probably.
Suppose your car accidentally veers off the road and ends up in a ditch. If you become frozen by panic and fear, how will you get out of the ditch? In other situations, instead of panic and fear, your mind might be flooded by anger and resentment, like if a careless driver were to crash into your car. If you respond by shouting a non-stop flow of verbal abuse, your impulsive and foolish behavior will only succeed in making a bad situation even worse. When our past karmas give rise to frightening or threatening situations, what can we do to respond more effectively? To answer that question, consider what an intelligent person would do after accidentally falling into the river. She might allow herself to float downstream for a few moments to calm herself and to determine the strength and direction of the current. Then, armed with this knowledge, she can figure out how to safely swim back to the near bank. Based on this example, if your car ends up in a ditch or struck by another car, an intelligent response might be to wait a few moments before doing anything, to calm yourself and allow the adrenaline rush to fade away. Those few moments can not only help settle your emotions, but they can also give you an opportunity to better understand the karmic current into which you've been swept. Then, with a composed mind and thoughtful deliberation, you can respond more appropriately and effectively to the situation. In times of crisis, they say. Don't just sit there, do something. But based on these observations, it might be better to take the opposite approach. Don't just do something, sit there. That means don't just act impulsively. Take some time to compose yourself and to think clearly before you act.
That last part, think clearly before you act, is something Sadhguru says, a very good phrase. I can't quite remember, but the idea is it clarity? Is it actions without clarity and clarity without actions, or something along those lines? But basically, you act without thinking, you're foolish. But if you think and then you act, then that's the better way. Again, I remember ideas, not quite the phrases. If you remember that phrase that Sadhguru says, please leave it in the comment. I definitely want to read that. But it just reminds me, I think clearly before acting. It reminds me of that Sadhguru phrase. Even though I don't remember the phrase, I remember the idea behind it.
Of course, in stressful situations, many people find it difficult to avoid panic, fear, anger, and impulsive behavior. In the heat of the moment, when your past karma fructifies by thrusting you into a new crisis, the way you respond depends largely on your state of mind. Some people's minds are naturally more composed and resilient, whereas others are more easily thrown off balance. For those who are subject to being thrown off balance in this way, regular prayer and meditation can bring about a tremendous decrease in the mind's reactivity and instability. Over the years, I've witnessed this transformation in myself and in many other spiritual practitioners. Regular prayer and meditation definitely helps develop an inner poise or calmness that persists even in stressful situations. Your own ongoing practice can help you remain steadfast at that so-called still point at the center of the storm, each time you encounter the challenges that arise due to the fructification of Papa Karma. Then, blessed by the fruits of your spiritual practice, you can more calmly and confidently navigate your way along the river of life. Om Sarve Bhavantu Sukhinaha Sarve Santu Niramayaha Sarve Bhadrani Pashyantu Ma Kaschid Dukkha Bhag Bhaveta Asato Ma Sadgamaya Tamaso Ma Jyotirgamaya Mrityor Ma Amritangamaya Om Shanti Shanti Shanti.
So I want to go back to this last image real quick. When he first gave the example to this one, I wanted to say, you are subject to the wind to some degree. Under the assumption you're not on a motorboat, obviously, but you have a paddle. So even though the winds are the karma, because the ocean itself doesn't really move unless the wind is blowing it, I believe. So you can paddle against the wind. It will require more effort to go against the wind, like he was talking about in the river and swimming. I was going to say that, but I decided against it. But now I am. So basically, I guess if the wind's blowing with you, then the wind was the karma, right? The wind's blowing with you, then that's good karma. Wind's blowing against you, that's bad karma. It's taking you somewhere where you don't want to go. You can paddle against it to brace yourself or to keep you in the same spot, but it's a lot more effort and you're fighting against the karma that you have in the past. Sometimes it's just best to, I won't say let it take it with you, but to put your sails down, I guess, and just kind of sit there like I was talking about in the river where you get swept away. and just wait, analyze, and find the best time and opportunity to navigate around it, to get out of it, or whatever the case may be. Anyways, that's my reaction to Doctrine of Karma Part 2, Karma and Free Will. If you like my content, please consider subscribing, thumbs up, thumbs down below. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next vid.